Hi everyone, my name is Voya and welcome to My Deep Guide. Today we're taking an in-depth look into the latest Amazon Kindle, I think it's called the new Kindle for 2019 device. It's the cheapest of the bunch, brings some new things to the table, it carries some old things to the table. Let's see what it's like to use and what it offers. Here is the Amazon's Kindle for 2019, they say all new. And as I've mentioned in the unboxing video, its overall build quality is good, but the design is rather old-fashioned. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with it, it just is an old type of design with a really thick bezel, indented screen, quite glossy type of screen as you can see here, and yeah, we have a micro USB on the bottom and the power button and an indicator, nothing on either of the sides, so it looks nice, it's perfectly functional, but the quality, as you can see, the plastic here is very plasticky. The front is much softer, much nicer, but yeah, it's rather thick as a device, it's rather weighty as a device, so yeah, it's cheap and it feels it and it looks it. They didn't save cost just in the quality of the plastic and the thickness of the device and the USB connector and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, one of the biggest cost savers would be the screen itself. And while this one does have a front light, and we'll talk about it just in a little while, but first I want to focus on the screen. The screen is super low resolution and it has the lowest PPI of any competitor out there. So even for a 6-inch, the pixel per inch ratio on this device is sub 200, and right now the standard is 300 ppi, and you can see it, you can feel it, your eyes can actually notice it, and it's something that is constantly present. There's nothing you can actually do about it, and it's just contributes to the overall feeling of, yeah, this is a cheap device, and it looks and feels and unfortunately reads cheaply as well. Hand in hand with the screen comes the front light, and it's being touted that finally the Kindle, the cheap Kindle, has the front light, and while it certainly does, you can't see it in here because it's maybe you can see a little, yeah, so this is totally off. This is totally on, but I'm going to show footage now where it's not brightly lit condition so that you can actually see it. So it changes and it reacts, but it is a single front light, and it is the blue type of front light, which in itself is already problematic. But the biggest problem of all comes in the way that front light has been implemented. And it took me a while I was reviewing and using this unit to figure out what was the thing that really bothered me. And the combination of this really cheap, non-uniform bluish front light that just glares and it's only unpleasant. It just is completely unpleasant. With the low PPI, the end result is completely dreadful. It's just really bad. And as soon as I actually turned off, and I thought that was the PPI, it didn't even cross my mind that it could be the front light that was causing so much. But at one point I simply turned off the front light and suddenly the pixel per inch ratio wasn't that bad at all. So it's the front light with the kind of blurriness and the lack of precision of the display itself, the combination is just really bad. So it's something that's actually quite unpleasant to use on a longer term, on the long time basis. For me at least, it was very unpleasant, and I couldn't wait to be finished reviewing and testing this, because yeah, I just wanted to move away from the screen and from the whole experience. It was very unpleasant. One of the strong points always for any of the Kindle devices is the battery life, and the new Amazon Kindle does not disappoint in that area. The battery life is excellent. It will last you weeks upon weeks upon weeks, and the important thing is that in standby it doesn't lose anything. So it's really, really good. It's something that's reliable, so you can charge it, and then depending on your use case scenario, I mean, I've been using it now for 4 dreaded weeks, yeah, and now I'm down to 56%, and I know I haven't been using it like 6 hours a day or anything like that. We're talking about maybe 2 hours a day or something like that. But even then, yeah, the battery is down to 56%, and I haven't been using the front light because I already mentioned that it wasn't really a pleasant experience for me. But the battery life itself works really well. Now on to the overall user experience, and before I dig into the main user interface library and all that kind of stuff, I first want to cover the things that you can do with this lonely power button and yeah, the proper use of the micro USB port. They may seem self-explanatory, but often, in often cases, you know, when you have a single button operations there, it doubles up in very strange combinations that maybe some of the users are not used to. So I just want to go and glance over that. So the power button down here is of course power on or power off. That's the main thing. Then once your device is on, if you just simply press it once, it will go back to sleep, and if you press it once again, it will wake up, and then you can slide up to avoid the commercial, and yeah, it will power up again. However, there are 2 more functions that you can use this power button for. If you press and hold for 9 seconds, you will get the power dialog, which you can cancel, and you can turn the screen off or restart the device. So that's pretty much okay. And then the next one is if for some reason your device becomes unresponsive, and in that situation what you can do is press and hold the power button for 15 seconds. The light underneath will flash amber 4 times, and you will perform a hard reset that way, so that you can reboot the device in a hard way so that it can hopefully get back to normal operation. Now the micro USB port is there of course for charging, but it also doubles up for connecting with your computer to do data transfers. The device will automatically put itself into the storage mode, and it will be detected as a USB storage drive on your computer. But you can, if you choose to, continue charging off your computer and still use the device normally. All you need to do is simply find the device on your PC or Mac and unmount it, and the device will flip back into the default mode. Default charge time should be under 4 hours, so that's also a good thing. The overall user interface is divided into, let's say, 4 or 3 small sections. Have the main section here. We have your library and recommendations. So this is your main navigation area, how you get to content. Then you have this toolbar where you get your main tools, and you have the notifications area. Now in the notifications area, you'll have your wireless signal, Bluetooth, connectivity, battery indicator. Incidentally, weak Wi-Fi will consume more battery, just like a, FYI. And then you have your time, and also if you have audio connected, because this is now Bluetooth enabled, if you have audio connected, then it will also display a little icon when it's playing audio. Activity indicator will be here on the upper left side. So for example, if I press sync, any type of activity will show this little icon here rotating. And yeah, that's pretty much. Keyboard itself on the device is okay. It works fine. You can, yeah, it's fairly responsive. So let me just switch now to English. Looking for, but it's not great. So it is responsive, but the precision isn't that great, so you will need to get used to it a little bit. I think it works a little bit better when you hold it like this and then you go looking 4, and then you get a little bit better results as well. So it really depends on your typing habits, but yeah, it works fine. One thing is the globe here, which will not appear unless you have it set up, multi-languages set up in the settings. And for that you would need to go to settings, then all settings, languages and dictionaries. And as I said, it's a little bit sluggish. It's not that responsive, but okay. And then you go to keyboards, and in the keyboards you can download additional ones and mark to use more than one. So I'm currently using English and Norwegian one, which is 2 keyboards, which means that if I go into search, I will have my globe little icon, and once I tap on the globe icon, it will flip between the languages that I have activated. Before I continue, there's one thing that I would like to mention, and this is because it's an Amazon type of device and it's in the Amazon world. This means that this device is going to share voluntarily and involuntarily a lot of information that it gathers from you online. So that's the nature of this type of platform. And one of the things that I really don't like is that it's actually saving for your convenience. It's saving the passwords of your Wi-Fi connections, any that you've used. If you've clicked on save, it will save it, but that saved password will be uploaded onto the Amazon servers, encrypted of course, but it will be uploaded onto the Amazon servers and it will be stored and linked with your accounts. The convenience is I get another Amazon device, I hook up to the same network, I don't have to remember the password, it has it stored for me. But the bad side is somebody hacks Amazon, which is quite unlikely, but it does happen from time to time. Not Amazon, but the big ones do get hacked. And then people have your Wi-Fi lists, and that's not a nice prospect. So if that's something that you don't like, you can go to settings, all settings, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and you have the option of deleting Wi-Fi passwords. And this is the option that you want to choose if you're selling the device over and all that kind of stuff. Just be sure to actually delete the passwords beforehand and then reset the device and all that kind of stuff so that you can be sure that it's all cleared out nicely. So just a little heads up. Now the main toolbar in the home screen, you have the home button, the back button, which acts like an Android back button, so it goes back to the previous operation. You have the settings, which brings up the settings, and if you want more settings, you get more. Nope, this is not customizable. It is the way it is. That's just what it is. And incidentally, nope, you don't have a button to simply turn off the brightness. You have to either press this one and then turn it off, or just slide it back down. Then you have the Goodreads, which I'm not gonna touch at all, not even with a stick. And you have the store, and you have a search to search through your libraries, and you have a little bit more options where you can go through your libraries, reading lists, Kindle store, Audible store, Goodreads, Amazon Free Time, experimental browser. It's not that great, really not that great. So there's a reason why it's experimental. And if you go to settings here, so these settings and these settings are not the same. These settings are the settings here, but when you go to all settings, then whoever designed this, like, what the hell. Then you have legal, special offers, and create a new collection. Now the collections is cool. That's the only one that's actually interesting from all of this, because that's the one you can consider like folders or subfolders, and it's quite cool to organize your stuff and to organize your library into additional collections. The home screen here, by default, this is what you will have. So you will have your library, and it will show 3 last accessed documents of any type that you've used. Then you have your reading lists, and then we have recommended for you in prime time. You can slide it down, and then you have more recommendations and all that kind of things. And lastly, but certainly not least, at least for me, is that a significant portion of the screen is permanently occupied by a banner, a commercial banner. And no, you cannot get rid of it. that's always there. So well, technically you do have a 6-inch screen. A significant portion becomes this banner and all of this kind of stuff, and then it just becomes smaller. Of course, the banner is there only on the home screen, not on the reader itself, but still it kind of sucks to have that blocked off all the time and you not being able to do anything about it. You've paid for the device, so why do I need to have this still here? It kind of sucks. Now, the home screen itself can be changed to a different type of look, which is something that I prefer. So if I go to settings, all settings, and then device options, and then advanced options, then I get to home and library, and then I have the home screen view. And I can show store recommendations and reading lists off. And now when I go back to my home screen, I have an overview of my content. And that's something that I actually prefer because I really don't care about that stuff, because I can always go to the store, and yeah, I don't want recommendations all the freaking time. I want my content here as a default. That should have been the default by by default. So the library itself is actually quite extensive. So you have the full Kindle library for the books, but you also have the Audible store because it's an Amazon audio-enabled device, which is really, really good. And you also have the Goodreads and the Amazon free time and blah, blah, blah. However, the download time for Kindle store, not that much. It's not a big deal because they're small files. But for Audibles, I've noticed that regardless of what kind of Wi-Fi connection you have or internet connection you have, the download times are extremely slow. And not only that, it can only download one file at a time. So when you couple all of that, then it's just a little bit inconvenient because it takes quite a long time to actually download an audio book. And just to kind of say what quite a long time is, 7 to 10 minutes to actually download a full Audible book. So that's not that great, but okay. We can always switch between library showing you all of your content that you own, or all of the downloaded or imported content that you've added into this device and synced with the account that you have. And you have a very handy filter section where you can actually check out your Audible. You can filter by Audible books, by samples, by periodicals like newspapers, comic books, or things like that, and imported documents. So I think that works really, really well. Overall, I like how the library works. Once you get rid of the recommendations and stuff and you're in this other view, which is the full normal view, then it works really nice. Alright, now let's get on to the main event, which is the reader itself. So I'm just gonna open up one of the ebooks here and start checking out how you navigate and what you do. So first of all, the navigation is, you can imagine like these three rectangles here, and they're fixed. There's no way of changing that. So the biggest right-hand side section here is always going to be your page forward. So if you tap it, no matter where you tap it, it will still go page forward. However, this one here on the left side, when you go a little bit closer to the left edge, you will be able to go page back. So that's okay. I would prefer to have at least an option to customize this so that I can, arrange it a little bit better, because very often I want to go back and I instead go forward, which I think, in 2020, there's no reason why not to have an option to customize it to your liking, but okay. So that's that. And then we have the upper half here, where if you tap, you will get your standard same toolbar, but also the toolbar with the formatting options, bookmark or go-to options, bookmarks themselves, and the page flip options. Now the page flip itself can also be called up by swiping up. So that's a really cool thing to actually have. You can just simply swipe up and that works. Now, while we're at the page flip, I can just kind of cover that a little bit. You have a single page or a, kind of 9 pages column here. The idea is that you can quickly examine another page in another chapter or something like that without leaving your current page. So if I wanted to go here, I can just kind of see what's what. And Furthermore, I can always go back within the same session, so as long as the document hasn't been closed, I can always flip back through the history of the flipbook pages that I've used. Now, if I want to, I can just go next, previous, and if I don't want any of this, I can just simply close, and I'm still on the original page where I was. Other than the navigation, what else can we do? Well, we can highlight the text by long pressing a word, and then you wait for quite a little while because the dictionary will automatically find itself and then it'll try to find a word, and then you can use the handles to adjust your selection, and then you can share the selection, highlight it to make it a highlight, or make it a highlight and a note, in effect making an annotation. Also, it's all possible to highlight between different pages by simply going to the page after or next page or the previous page by simply going to the corners, and then it works. And I think that works actually quite nicely. So if I highlight this and then make it a highlight, it will be highlighted. And if I make a selection here, I'll wait for the dictionary and then select this and go for a note, then I'll automatically get my keyboard and say that this is my note. And as you can see, the keyboard, while it's okay, it's not the best. So you will have a lot of these things kind of to correct it. I find myself correcting the inputted stuff quite often. But yeah, when a highlighted section is annotated, you will have a little number here to indicate that that's an annotation as well. Now, in order to access these things, you can use the go-to options. Basically, go-to options is your bookmarks and your notes and the overview of the document itself. So bookmarked pages will appear as bold, and you can of course slide through, but I find myself very often wanting to swipe through the contents and actually it going into the content itself, but okay, that's not a big deal. So you can go through chapters here, select a chapter, and it goes into there, which is fine. Then you can also go into notes, and both the highlights and the notes will appear here, and you'll have the switch between yours and popular. So you can also check what are the popular highlights, etc, etc. And of course you have the option to edit them, share them, delete them, or export the notes that you want. And if you export them, they will be exported into your account itself. So that's kind of okay, and that works fine. Next to it, you have the option of checking out your bookmarks, and this one is not that fine. So remember, as I said, this is my first time dealing with the Kindle environment, Amazon Kindle environment, and to be honest, I'm a little bit shocked by how Spartan it is and how limited it is, because they are the pioneers, and by every kind of conceivable measure, they should be the leaders. But I mean, I'm sorry, but a lot of the competition blows this hell out of the water. I mean, it's just, the bookmark is a two-step process, and so you have to tap the page, and it's like always telling you, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Okay, now I have a bookmark. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And it's just something that, it's a small thing, but I wish there was an option to at least set it up for users who want to use it that way and for users who don't want to use it that way, so that, you can just bookmark by a single tap, that I don't have to do this all the time. And the same thing with the deleting bookmarks, it just goes like that. Now, once you have bookmarks, they are here, but again, it's I can't really rename them. I can't do much about them. I like the idea that it shows you a preview of the page. That's kind of nice. But, again, the functionality is fairly limited and rigid, and it's not something that I find intuitive. Probably users, long-time Kindle users who are used to this, they don't even notice it. But I'm a new Kindle user, and I'm coming from different platforms that feel and function way more, they're way more agile and way more modern than this is. The next thing that's actually really important for me for EPUBs is the formatting functionality, and luckily we have quite a few options here. So if you press the AA button, that's always the formatting icon, and then you get to the formatting options, and you have your compact, large, and standard defaults. And the device is fairly agile when it comes to kind of changing this, because this is a larger kind of document, so that works. I think it works actually nice. But the thing that I really like, and it's something that a lot of devices and platforms actually are missing, is the ability to save your own customized themes. Now that's super cool, and that's something that I wish other platforms would have, because more often than not, especially on a smaller format, you will have a set preference type of formatting that you like, and it would be really just make sense to actually save it as a theme and use it across different books. Other than themes, we have the ability to change fonts. You can change the boldness of the fonts, basically 5 steps of boldness, or 6 I think, and the size of the font, and a fixed set of different fonts that you can use. Then we have the layout, where you can choose the orientation to be portrait or landscape. You can use the alignment, and of course margins, will they be wide, standard or narrow, and spacing, but the spacing is just between the lines. There's no separate spacing control for paragraphs, which is something that I miss, because often I would like my paragraphs to be a little bit more spaced out than the lines to actually afford, or kind of give me a little bit more of a reading clarity here and there, but okay, that works. Then we have the more option, where you have quite a lot of other things, but one of the important ones for me, which was actually, I find it really difficult to find now, even now when I know, it takes like a lot of time to figure out where is this setting, because it's kind of weird, but it's here, and let me show you what I mean. So by default we have, well, by default you don't have page 187, you have the locator or LOC and some number there, which is great, because that's how EPUB works from a programmer side of things, but from a user side of things, the page should be the default. So for me on this device it was locator. Now this is changed here as when you go into more and you go into reading progress, you have the option of page in book, time left in book, none, time left in chapter, or location in book. So for me it was location in book by default, and that gives me like LOC 5958. Like, great, thanks, that means a lot. So that's something that took a little while to kind of figure out, but once you know and you repeat it several times, you are likely to remember where it is. I find myself often looking for options because they're like seemingly scattered all over the place. So yeah, but if you're looking for the bottom page formatting, yeah, it makes sense to be in the formatting of a document. I get that, but it would be nice to actually have a shortcut to that option, maybe from there in the reading options as well. But anyway, you go to more, reading progress, and you can change that. So in more, you can also show clock while reading, book mentions, about this book, popular highlights, highlight menu, and you can use word-wise on or off. And word-wise basically reformats your whole book if it's turned on, and it kind of gives you a small explanation above less often used words, so that you don't have to look them up. But then again, it just messes up the formatting of a document so much, and it looks so unreadable, for me at least, that I really don't get it. Why wouldn't I just simply use a dictionary when I encounter a word? Especially because if you have that dictionary building thingy, every time you look up a word using the search in the dictionary, it's added up, and then you build up your own dictionary. So, but yeah, maybe some people actually like the word-wise thing, so yeah, maybe it works. For me, it's definitely not something that I liked, but yeah, it's there if you need it. Now, formatting is a little bit different in PDFs, and the navigation and everything else works exactly the same because it's the same reader. By the way, that was the loading time for this page. That's how long it kind of take. So once it does load it, it actually works. But yeah, if you have a heavier type of document, then it's gonna take a little bit of time for it to load. Readability, you know, it's a small format, so if you're using PDFs that are not formatted targeted for readers and they are not meant to be used on a small format, of course it's going to be a problem. And the formatting options are a little bit limited. So this is my widest margins. I do have a zoom option. I can zoom in if I wanted to, and that works okay. But once I do have it, then I can just kind of slide up and down and scroll left and right, which doesn't quite work. So technically speaking, maybe you can try and find the zoom aspect ratio that will work, but for me, I managed to find a much better option. So for me, if I flip it to orientation, horizontal or landscape, then what happens is that it formats to the width, and suddenly it becomes a lot more readable. But not only that, most importantly for me is the fact that when I hit next page, it just slides down the page itself, and then when it reaches the end, it flips on to the next page. So this is something that I really like, and then suddenly it transforms this really small format into something that you can actually use for these unoptimized documents. So the landscape orientation for the PDFs really works well on this one, and it's a surprise because I did not expect it to work that well. The margins, this is as wide as it can. I wish it could be you know, kind of fit, like stretch to fit kind of, but okay. And the contrast is there, I think 0 to 5, and yeah, it kind of works, but anything above 2 simply becomes way too mushy, and when combined with the low PPI resolution, then it just becomes almost unreadable depending on how small the fonts are in here. You can highlight texts in the PDFs as well if they are not scanned images, and everything works exactly the same. You can highlight them, you can make notes of them, and that actually works fine. And I think that's pretty much it. You don't have page flip because it's not an EPUB, so it doesn't have those options. But you do have, if the PDF document has a table of contents, you have your table of contents exactly the same like in an EPUB, and the notes are here as well. So the functionality is streamlined and consistent between formats, enough to kind of offer a very painless transition between different formats, which I think is a good thing. So overall, I think it handles light to medium PDFs very well. Formatting options, I wish there was a little bit more. Of course, there's no reflow or anything like that. It just can't do any of those things. But the landscape, for me at least, the landscape option and how it functions in the landscape option saves it, because then it becomes actually usable. Now I'm back in an EPUB, or basically a Kindle book, and if I go to additional options here, this is where you can again go into the Kindle store. Then you have the vocabulary builder, which automatically, if it's turned on, it automatically builds over time. As you search for words and look up words, it automatically puts them in. You have additional settings for the documents, but that actually just takes you again to the settings here, and then I can go back and command respond. Ugh, no, not the store. Then you can go to notes, which is basically a shortcut to the go to notes thingy. You can read about the book, you can read about the author. Then you have the X-ray mode, which is basically a new thing, relatively new thing that's added to the Kindle ecosystem as far as I understand, and it gives you different insights, like really intricate details and intricate insights into anything and everything that you may be interested in for this book, and depending on the chapter that you're at. And I think it's a really cool thing, especially if you're reading a period piece like Monte Cristo is, for example, and you may not know about the aspects of society and historical intricacies of that period of time. Then it actually helps to give you a better insight into what you're reading so that you can understand it better. So it's something that I quite like. Then you can also sync to furthest page read. If you've read on a different device or a different platform, then you can just sync the document to the furthest page read anywhere else, and you can share normally. Similarly, we have also additional options for the PDFs, but they are pretty much limited to the vocabulary builder, settings, and notes. One more thing is that Kindle does support dumping in documents of different formats into it, and what it does support are documents, docx, PDFs, HTMLs, text files, RTF files, and then images of JPEG, GIF, PNG, BMP, and PRC. So all of those are, you can just load them up or email to the Kindle device and they will be there. Now, if you are adding the documents yourself into the device itself, once you plug it into USB, you'll find that there's a folder called Documents that's already natively there. And if you put your imported documents into the Documents folder, they will sync to your Amazon account. So that's a useful thing to kind of know. Otherwise, you will have to manually kind of sync them. So everything that you email to yourself and everything that you put into the Documents folder will be synced. Other stuff will not and will be just kept on this device only. Now, I think a very important aspect of a Kindle device, especially this one, is that it has Bluetooth and it has audio capabilities, because it opens up the Audible store, which is a big deal for me because I have a rather big library there because I use it quite a lot. And once you open it up, you have pretty much exactly the same thing, and it works like any Audible that you're used to. If I wanted to just simply go through my Audibles that I have already downloaded, now you can see how sluggish the device is. It really takes quite a bit of time. What? No items. I downloaded them. What are you talking about? Okay, I guess it didn't download. It was so slow that it never downloaded. All right, let's download again. So let's download this. And you will see the speed I talked about. So 0%, still 0%. Still 0%. Hey, 2%. That's kind of cool. Now I'm not gonna wait the whole thing. It's okay, 4%. So it's gonna take a while. So I'm just gonna press pause here. Now while it's downloading, I'm just gonna pair up my Bluetooth headphones. So I'm just gonna put them into pairing mode. And now I go to all settings, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, Bluetooth devices. All right, now he sees them. My computer was stealing them, so now he sees them. I'm gonna pair, and there we go. We have the audio and the Bluetooth icons are on, so that's kind of cool. Now let's see how far did we get with our download. Now, here's the thing. It would be really nice if I could just kind of see the progress of what it is that you're doing. Because right now he's doing something, and if I had forgotten what he was doing, it would be, it's like, well, what's going on? So, again, this whole platform is a little bit, so yeah, 42% ready to play. Well, if it's ready to play, let's click it and enter the Audible Player on the Kindle. And it's a very familiar experience for anybody using an Audible Player. It works just the way you would expect it to. So I'm just gonna press play and bring this.
A Man on the Moon. The Voyages of the Apollo Astronauts.
Yep, so that works, and you can everything works exactly the same as any other Audible app. And here we see the actual speed of how quickly it's downloading. So it's taking its time. We're talking about quite a lot of minutes to download 322 megabytes, and with my internet speed connection, this should have been done in 5 seconds. So yeah, that takes a long time. And yeah, I don't know what you can't really do much about that. I guess that's how it functions. But yeah, Audible itself functions as you would expect it to, and I do like that. You have the chapters overview and all that kind of stuff that works normally. You can add bookmarks and everything else. So that's a good thing, and I love the fact that you have the Audible as well. That's a very nice thing. Kindle has also another functionality which is called VoiceView Screen Reader, and that's basically an accessibility option so that you can get a different set of special gestures, and it basically sends audio signals or audio instructions back to you so that you can navigate depending on what's what, so you can read the titles and all that kind of stuff, which is really cool. But what I find really odd is that there's like this huge elaborate procedure of how to enable it and what to do with it and blah 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 blah, which is kind of silly. And let me just read through that so that you know how silly this is. The procedure is like this. For the first time setup for the VoiceView screen, first you power up the device, then you wait for 45 seconds, then you put the Bluetooth device into pairing mode, then you press and hold power button for 9 seconds, then you hold 2 fingers spaced apart on the screen for 1 second and wait up to 2 minutes to hear audio from a Bluetooth device. Then, when you hear audio, hold 2 fingers spaced apart on the screen until you start hearing the tutorial, and then you follow the tutorial on the Bluetooth device. Then it goes to say like, okay, so that's the first time startup, but every single other time when you wanna kind of power it up, you need to turn the Bluetooth device on, press the power on button for 9 seconds, press 2 fingers on the screen for 6 seconds, and then it will turn on. Or you can do this. You can go to all settings and you go to accessibility and turn the VoiceView Reader option on and off. Obviously, if you have the needs for this kind of thing and you have some kind of limitations that prevent you from using these options, then surely there must have been a better way of doing this than the procedure that was shown. But once you turn it on, then you have the tutorial, speech rate, volume, and everything else. So that's kind of okay, but I really don't understand the complex procedure. It's just a little bit strange. So I think that definitely could be streamlined, possibly. But yeah, that's the option that you do have. Then we have the screensaver, and yeah, this is the screensaver. And I'm sorry, I don't think a constant commercial on a device that I paid for is okay to call a screensaver, especially not when the power on sequence is, because of this, is always a 2-step process. You have to power on the device, and if you don't want to use the read now, you have to swipe. If you tap, you will go to the commercial and to the store. And once you do go in, then you're welcomed by another commercial here at the bottom, which is permanently there in the home screen. And there are no options to disable that. You only have the option of doing special offers, and you can use special offer filtering in the settings as well. I think it's kind of important to know that you have to deal with the privacy control, which is by default it's on. So the device by default is sending out data as much as it can. You have to disable that on your own, and basically if you go to device options and then advanced options and then you go to privacy, then you can disable the data about the device and how it's used, etc., etc. So no, it's not just used for marketing offers, it is traded with third parties, and that's now becoming a very, very real issue that I think more people should be aware of, but that's a whole other story. So for me and the likes of me, the first thing I disable is privacy. Having that in mind, you do have like this family option to set up family users. So you have parents and your children, and then you have to register accounts for your children with the Amazon and share their usage data with God knows who. I don't have kids, but just even the thought of that makes my skin crawl. So I can't even imagine how that would make a parent feel. So certainly, yeah, it's kind of handy and stuff, but what's wrong with not having online option? Give your kid a tablet that's locked or password protected or something like that. There's other options than simply registering your kids to the Amazon accounts. That's just a little bit of a creepy kind of thought, but maybe that's just me. Another way of actually getting the documents directly onto your Kindle device is really handy. If you go to all settings and then all settings, and then you go to device options and advanced options. No, go to your account. At the bottom you have this send to Kindle email, and if you send on this email address the documents and stuff, then the compatible documents that are accepted by a Kindle device will automatically be synced to your account and everything. So I think that's kind of useful because it makes it very, very easy to get the documents on. That I think works, and it's a nice and handy way of doing things. And another thing that's useful is in device options, advanced options, you have the storage management. Now, here's one bad thing. So this is supposed to be a 4 GB device, and we know about the discrepancies. So if you have a 32 GB device, for example, Note 2, you have like available 27 GB or something like that. And that's not a big deal on such a large capacity device, but here this is a 4 GB device, but you have 2.75 gigabytes available. If you're starting to use Audible books and all that kind of stuff, that's just gonna run out real quick. Once you go into the storage management thingy, you have this thing called Quick Archive, which can do good things but can also do kind of bad things if you don't know what it does. It can clean up all the stuff that you haven't really used in the last 1 month, 3 months, or 6 months, and it shows you how much you free up. And the idea is, well, everything is synced, right? Well, yeah, but the stuff that's not synced, it will remove it as well. So you better be sure that you have everything synced to your account. Otherwise, the unsynced stuff is also going to be removed by the Quick Archive. If you don't want that to happen, then you have the manual removal where you can actually do that. But even here, it's a little bit kind of blah, blah, blah. But you do have control. So just be aware that Quick Archive, when it archives, it actually deletes the stuff from the device. Synced stuff, not a big deal, but stuff that's not been synced, it will be lost. So caution. All right, so it's conclusion time, and as usual, I'm going to start with the cons. And there's, unfortunately for me, there's quite a few cons with this one. Even though it is the cheapest one, and you can find it like for $80 on sales and things like that. So it's around $80 to $100 margin, which is cheap, but you still would expect a certain amount of things for that amount of money, especially with the competitors. So my first con would actually be the design of it, the physical design, not the actual build quality. Build quality is fine, nothing wrong with that, but the design is, as I mentioned, it's too thick, it's too heavy, and it's just a little bit bulky, and it constantly feels super, super dated. I mean, maybe that's why they had to say that it's a new one, because unless they said that it's a new one, it certainly doesn't feel like a new type of device, especially not in 2020. So that's a con for me. The second con is the low resolution screen. Again, all of the competitors, or most of the competitors at the 6, 7, and 8 inch range have at least 220, but most of them have 300 ppi, and that's basically standard. And this one's, yeah, barely over half of that. So, and you can definitely see it and feel it. So that's another con. Another big con as well is the front light. I've talked about that, and it just, in combination with the low ppi of the screen, just creates a very unpleasant effect. And it just is something that I've noticed that it actually strains my eyes considerably, and I find reading on this device unpleasant. As soon as I turned off the front light, the unpleasant sensation, it was considerably lower. So, and then again, of course, for nighttime reading, yeah, forget about it, because it's just this glaring blue light, and even at the minimum setting, it just glares this kind of sickening blue, and I really, really, really don't like that one. Another con is the extremely low storage space. So while it says it has 4 gigabytes, and always there is a discrepancy because you need an OS and everything else. On this device, more than on the other ones, you're down to 2.7 gigs of available space, and that's quite low. So that's something that's also quite disappointing at this day and age, and for the price range, because it's low. Really, really slow download times from the library, both the Kindle books, which is not a big deal because they're relatively small, but for Audible files, that's quite a big of a problem, because I wanted to just quickly download a couple of them, and I'm used to on every single other device, they just tap, 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 and it downloads and it's fine. This one is just like, what the hell is going on? And I was trying to figure out, do I have something wrong? Is something broken? Because it's really slow, but no, that's just how it works, and that's doesn't really work for me either. Oh, this is a big no-no for me. The ad banners and the ad screensavers, oh god, I hate those. I viscerally hate those, and that's just really crawling up my skin really, really a lot, because the whole experience is like constantly reminding you that this is not your device, this is an Amazon's device, and you're just using it. And I don't like that at all. Even if I get over the whole Amazon lock-in type of thing, the overall user interface feels, again, old and really clunky, because like everything is scattered all over the place, and it just feels so badly coordinated, undesigned, and just kind of like, here's this part and then this part and then that part. Ta-da! It should be streamlined considerably. Taking into consideration that, the Kindle devices are the pioneers, you would certainly expect them to actually excel in that department, because they've had the upper edge and they had the early start. But no, I mean, as far as the user experience, the only user experience that I found that was actually more clunky and worse than this was the Pocketbook. That one's just but this one's like close second to the worst one of them all. So really, really bad user experience, design and overall. For example, and this is for me a separate con, bookmarking is a 2-step process. Adding and removing a bookmark is a 2-step process every single time. And not to have an option to actually just switch it to a single tap? Why? Why not? What's the possible reason not to have that? I can't understand. And again, virtually there is no customizability allowed whatsoever. There's nothing that this device and that this ecosystem allows you to customize to make it even a tiny, tiny little bit smidge your own. No, you're denied at every given point. So again, I get back to that point. It doesn't feel like my device. It's a device that you buy, but it feels like a device on loan. And not for me. Again, the Amazon thing, I have privacy concerns, because by default every possible thing that it can do to send and gather data from your use and your personal data and share it and send it and sell it, it's actually on by default, and it's your own responsibility to find that and disable it. And I don't like that mentality. It's again another thing that's not for me. And finally, the flipbook cover that I talked about, you've noticed that I haven't even shown it here, and it's simply because it's ridiculously heavy and bulky, and it just becomes completely unusable. I mean, it's like a complete brick. You can't read with that flipbook because it's simply too heavy. It's almost as heavy as the device, so it's kind of, what's the point? And then you give the price and the shoddy quality and the plastic feel, and it's just, no, not a good thing. Now for the pros. The only other device that I had to work this hard to find pros for was the Pocketbook InkPad X, and I really had to kind of dig deep and find a couple of pros on this one. I got 3. Battery life. Of course, undeniably, really, really good battery life. Despite the design, I like the ergonomics of it. So it is something, the only thing that lets it down is the weight, but if it were lighter, how it sits in the hand is actually quite comfortable, and it lends itself to be used for a longer period of time were it not for the weight. So almost great comfort of use, but very good, let's say. And a thing that I really genuinely like is the PDF landscape mode, how it functions and how it works, because it turns this really small device into a very usable PDF reader for the documents that you wouldn't normally be able to use or read on such a small device, especially with such a low resolution display. But this one actually flips it and it functions seamlessly, effortlessly, and it turns it into a usable reader. So that's something that I actually quite like. So what's the overall conclusion? I don't like it. I really don't like it, and there's very few specific reasons why. Not the cons or the pros, but like an overall conclusion thingy. Even though it is a very low price, that low price does not justify the negatives that are associated with this device. My main question is, why does it even exist? And the main problem is its bigger brother, the Paperwhite. Paperwhite is thinner, has better display, better front light, is more ergonomically funky, and it's waterproof. It has like a bunch of bells and whistles in there that this one doesn't have. And yes, initial price on paper is higher, but you can find Paperwhite on sales quite often, very near to the $100 mark. And then we're talking about maybe $20, $25 difference between this and a Paperwhite, and then you're just like, why? What's the point of this? I really don't get it. So for me, the new Amazon Kindle for 2019 is a very big disappointment, and yeah, not recommended. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye. Seconds. You can computer with the USB of your computer. If it's so, while technically save. Defaults. Families that you can use.